all of you to the chamber. This is the first time we've been here in a year and a half. Yay, we're back.
Yeah.
June 16, 2021, Executive Council, Council Chamber, State House, Boston, Mass. Dear councilors, I'm pleased to nominate Timothy Dooling to the position of Administrative Judge of the Industrial Accident Board for a 6-year term. I submit the nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 23E, Section 5. I'm enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. Sincerely, Charles D. Baker, and the vice is Richard Heffernan. For those of you who don't know, the Executive Council is the Governor's Council. That's our formal official name, but we now go by the Governor's Council because Council Iannello started that tradition many years ago. Okay, so let's start with the witness. The first one is the Auditor of the State of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you very much, Chairman JUbinville and members of the council. I do have copies of my remarks for you if you'd like to
We'll
have
make
them
sure they go into the file.
distributed. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Suzanne Bump, and I am Auditor of the Commonwealth, and it's my great pleasure to speak to you today as you consider the nomination of Attorney Timothy Dooling to the position of Administrative Judge at the Department of Industrial Accidents. Attorney Dooling has been my general counsel and a deputy auditor for more than 5 years. He has served not only as my chief legal advisor, but has also had responsibility for the operation of the Bureau of Special Investigations and the Division of Local Mandates, and has served as my designee on several boards. I've interacted with him on nearly a daily basis, which means I have had ample opportunity to observe him in varied settings and in the performance of a wide range of legal and managerial tasks. Whether handling an internal matter or one involving another state agency or governmental body, Attorney Dooling has consistently demonstrated competence, integrity, transparency, a quick mind, and a steady hand. He is adept at bringing parties together and in rendering thoughtful, well-reasoned decisions. Some may regard the auditor's office as a placid back office operation in state government, but this is a dynamic organization employing new technologies and utilizing new methods to do our work. It has required an equally agile and forward-looking legal department participating in matters ranging from data governance to financial surveillance, as well as providing the typical human resources, procurement, and policy guidance needed in a government office. Attorney Dooling has been able to rapidly acquire the knowledge necessary to guide us through our decision-making and to work with other state agencies in helping us accomplish our mission. As an employer who sees the professional growth of her staff as one of her main responsibilities, I'm immensely proud of what Attorney Dooling has already accomplished in government and excited about what lies ahead of him at the DIA. As you may appreciate, the operation of the DIA has long held my interest. 30 years ago, I was the principal author of the law that reformed the workers' compensation system, and the professionalization of the Industrial Accidents Board was a top priority of mine. The quality of the appointments under the old system was, shall I say, uneven, as was the ultimate performance of the individual judges. The stakeholders in the system, the bar, the business community, the workers, had no voice. And because there was no accountability, cases could and did linger for years. When I was labor secretary, I got to sit on the judicial nominating panel created by that reform law with those stakeholders and evaluate applicants for this position. We looked for candidates with the intellect, work ethic, judgment, temperament, and competence that's required to ensure that disputes are handled promptly, impartially, and fairly. So while Attorney Dooling has had to dust off his workers' comp practice books, his position of these necessary traits and his overall success as a government lawyer make me confident in his ability to serve with distinction. From legislative theory to administrative practice, I was and remain dedicated to the DIA's mission of delivering timely and equitable resolution of workplace injury disputes. The success of this system depends upon the quality of its administrative judges. I am more than confident that Attorney Dooling will be just the kind of judge that I've always hoped would serve with the DIA. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Councilor Kennedy?
No question.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those remarks, Councillor. I am looking forward to the conclusion of my service, but I'd like to make clear that anything I've been able to accomplish has been a team effort, and Tim has been a vital part of that team. Thank you.
Councilor Duff? Say something.
Always great. Keep up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your testimony. It means a lot to me and to all of the councilors.
Thank you.
Because of who you are. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just going to take a recess for about 5 minutes. So you guys can wait here or you can mill around or whatever. Just a 5-minute recess. Okay. I want to point out we have some councilors present here. Councilor Devaney, Councilor DiPaolo, Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Duff, and Councilor Iannello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now we'll hear from probably the most esteemed judge we have sitting in this Commonwealth. There may be some equal to you, but nobody better than you.
When are you coming up again?
Terry, you're going to say.
I received he was coming.
So go ahead, give us,
First of all, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here today. For Tim, my name is Judge Archia. I am right now the presiding judge in the Haverhill District Court. I've been on the bench for going on 8 years in October.
wow.
And I'm honored to be here today. Tim, more importantly, good to see you on your faces again. As you know, I've been here just probably most important thing. So full disclosure, and I'll keep this up. Sure. Tim is my best friend. His family is my family. And I think I need to get that out of the way because I need to draw the distinction between my friendship with Tim. We go back since 2003, and my utmost respect for him professionally. And there's, interestingly, there's a difference. I trust him as a friend to be able to give me good advice. Your true friends won't always agree with you. Your true friends point out your bad habits and all your imperfections and all your shortcomings, and he points them out to me daily. And he keeps me honest and he keeps me grounded, but that's because he's substantial and he's grounded and he's honest. Enough of that. That's my friendship with Tim. He's my best friend, and I think it's important that I get that out of the way. We first met as prosecutors in the Peabody District Court back in 2003. We tried cases together every single day. I couldn't think of anyone more adept at learning the work, at being fearless in the courtroom. This translated, for some reason, Tim, I don't know if he follows me or I follow him, but we keep running into each other. We work together at the parole board as well. Tim left the DA, I left the DA's office, went into private practice for a while. Then Tim went to work at the parole board. I later went to work at the parole board. Tim was the assistant legal counsel. I was a board member at the parole board, and we worked there together for a number of years. I had an opportunity to see a different side. He had started out doing some litigation with respect to insurance companies. Then he was a prosecutor in Essex County for 5 years. Went to work at the parole board, both as the resume obviously speaks to all this, both as the assistant general counsel, but also as executive director. He wore many hats, and each job was different. And what was remarkable for me to see my friend accomplish was that each job, whatever was or was not in his wheelhouse, he just rose to that and excelled and was the point person in every single job. He later went on, left the parole board, and went to work at workforce development, also as the executive director and general counsel, and subsequently working with Auditor Bump. We talk almost maybe every day, maybe twice a day. And we don't just talk about the usual stuff. We talk about work and his job and his role and his roles in every single job that he's worked at. And I can tell you, I am impressed, not because he's my friend, I'm impressed at the level of professionalism that he brings to each and every job that he's worked at. I mean, he's extremely intelligent. His understanding of the work, regardless of whether it was work he had to learn, he's appeared in federal court while representing the parole board. I know he's been in so many other places representing the auditor's office, and Auditor Bump just spoke briefly to that. And I'm honored to be here. The resume cannot, you look at a piece of paper and it tells you what he's done as on paper, but it can't fully encapsulate who he is and what he brings to the table. And there is absolutely no reservation that regardless of what job he does on the bench, wherever he goes, he'll do a remarkable job. He's done it in every single job that I've seen him work at. And he brings everything to the table. He's an incredibly fast learner in everything he does. And I think that he'd be a tremendous asset to the DIA. Any questions?
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Yes,
Councilor Devaney?
I'd have to ask you a question.
please.
Oh, how far do we go back?
Oh, I don't know. Long time.
It's a year we used that.
Prior,
Because I
you go
voted.
before the parole board.
Right.
That's so that, you know, they bench 8 years in October, the parole board 4 years before that. And,
And my proudest 3 votes for you.
oh, nice.
You know, don't have a crystal ball. And sometimes you vote for someone and they disappoint you. And you never have.
Well, thank
And
you.
everyone holds you in the highest regard. And what a tribute for this nominee to have you sitting beside me to talk to him. And I want to say for State Auditor Suzanne Bump, it took 2 pages for her to talk about you. So that's pretty good. But I just wanted to know, he has had many hats and many jobs, and I in the departments that he's worked at. So what would you say when you put it all together? What does he bring to the board with all of these qualifications? What do you think is outstanding?
Again, the immediate things I've experienced with Tim is he's extremely intelligent. His legal acumen, second to none. He has, if he doesn't know the answer, he'll find the answer. His research is amazing, and he is adept at. I've yet to see one job that he has worked at that he hasn't excelled and risen to the top. General counsel at 3 different agencies now, and I learn from him every single day. I still do, and he brings the utmost in professionalism. He's empathetic. He gets it. It's not so much the work, not just the work itself, but he gets it in terms of dealing with people. You can see the open-mindedness. We have intense conversations about work, about politics, about life, about family. I understand how he thinks, and he never fails to amaze me as a friend and as a professional. And I know what he brings to the table is you couldn't get better than Tim.
Wow, that's great. You had the best 2 witnesses, I'll tell you, because sometimes we have someone sitting in your chair, and I'll say, well, what do you know about the nominee? Oh, I saw him once in court. Give me a break, you know? So it really means a lot to have witnesses speak so highly. And it's always my pleasure to say this. Yeah, you got a great boss now, too.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilor.
Not a question. Good to see you, Judge.
Good to see
It's
you.
always a pleasure.
Pleasure.
I understand you're doing a great job.
Counsel, good to see you.
Thank you.
So, Judge, can I just ask you a question?
Yes,
I heard, I want to know whether it's true,
it is.
that when you 2 guys got through at the DA's office, that the defense bar celebrated because now they could start winning a few cases. Is that true?
You know, one of the great things about us is we don't always agree, and he keeps me in check, and I like to think I keep him in check, and it's a great relationship. I learn from him every day, and I'm proud of that.
You think you should go back to the DIA with him?
No.
That's great.
Councilor, I
I
know.
just want to follow up on that.
And again, full disclosure, I have absolutely no idea what the IA does.
I
None.
understand.
None
You
whatsoever.
said you don't always agree all the time. I'm a strong advocate for the employee, the injured worker. And who do you think is going to be, you think he's going to be a strong advocate?
I'll tell
for
you exactly. I'll tell you exactly. He's going
Because
to
you
be,
said you disagree. I'm trying to get a sense.
I'll tell you exactly. He's going to be fair, and he's going to hear both sides, and he's going to do the right thing. That's what he's always done. Without any reservation.
Tie goes to who?
Tie goes to the injured party.
Okay. You made up. Okay.
That's why he is where he is. Yeah.
You almost had no vote for yourself.
Thank you very much, Judge. I appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Those are your witnesses for you. Any witnesses against? Any witnesses against? Hearing. There's probably a line out there. But we will hear from you. But before we do you want to introduce the people that are here today?
Yes, I would like to. Bless you, Counselor. Good morning, everyone. I'm very, very happy that my parents are here today. Brian and Marie. Just break a record, getting emotional the first 30 seconds. Brian's a retired school teacher in the town of Framingham, and Marie was a school teacher herself. They've raised my brother Kurt. We're very proud of him. He is an attorney at Pierce Mandel right around the corner. My sister Kate is a elementary school teacher in Salem. And of course, my lovely wife Mary is here. Mary is the Director of Interior Design at Payette Architecture in Boston here. And I think she's got one of the coolest jobs there is. Thank you, Auditor Bump, for all you've done for me. And thank you, Caesar. Judge Archia. He was an amazing prosecutor. He was a fantastic parole board member, and he's been a fantastic district court judge. What he didn't mention is he and I had a painting business together, a house painting business together. And I would call him middling at best as a house painter. I'd like to start my formal remarks by thanking Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito for my nomination. I'd also like to thank Chief Legal Counsel Robert Ross. It's been a real pleasure as a fellow government attorney to work with Attorney Ross, particularly over the last 15 months, as we've done our level best in state government to navigate this pandemic. Thank you also to Attorney Petrino, Valerie McCarthy of the Governor's Council. Thank you for the judicial nominating panel and the Workers' Comp Advisory Board for taking the time to interview me and advancing my name for your consideration. And of course, thanks to all of you. I've really enjoyed our conversations over the past 2 weeks, and I would appreciate your consideration for my nomination. I come to you today with a diverse background that includes time on a factory assembly line, repairing pricing guns, on a ladder painting houses, most recently with Caesar, in the classroom as a substitute teacher, as well as time at workers' compensation and Social Security disability law firms. I also come to you today as a very proud public servant, having served first as a state prosecutor in District Attorney Blodgett's office, and for the past 15 years in the General Counsel's office of 4 state agencies, including as General Counsel to one of DIA's sister agencies, the Department of Career Services, within the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development. But I began my legal career in the law office of retired United States Administrative Law Judge Robert J. Gallagher in his Worcester Law Office. At the time, Judge Gallagher was my then girlfriend, soon to become my wife, Mary's. Father. He was a tremendous mentor and friend to me, who, along with my wife, encouraged me after a somewhat checkered past and academic career to pursue law school. Judge Gallagher's practice was devoted exclusively to Social Security, disability, and workers' compensation. When I went to work for Bob, he gave me his copy of the Physician's Desk Reference, a book that sits proudly in my office today. My primary role in his office was speaking with injured and sick clients, often taking their initial claims and explaining the legal process to them. I assisted Bob with legal research and writing. I worked for Judge Gallagher until, oh boy. We lost him to Alzheimer's, and I wound down his practice. We lost him in 2008. Bob was a very proud administrative judge who often referred to the position as America's hidden judiciary. At the time, I also worked for my good friend Michael Crow, an attorney now living in Winchester at a firm that specialized in Social Security, disability, and workers' compensation, reverse offset recovery. I spent the first several years of my law school, and then upon passing the bar in these fields, Social Security, disability, and workers' compensation, primarily working for workers' comp insurance carriers in the nuanced field of reverse offset recovery. After a year at a Boston law firm doing civil litigation, I went to work in the Essex DA's office. It was there that I became a trial attorney. I immersed myself in the rules of evidence and trial technique. I studied judges, some of you in this room, and senior defense attorneys. I was lucky enough to try cases against some of the most accomplished defense attorneys in the state. I love trying cases. I took every opportunity I could get to get in front of a jury. I spent much of my time in the Peabody District Court with Judge Archia, and I learned a lot from seeing Judge Archia as a prosecutor and subsequently when he was a criminal defense attorney. I then went to work for Suffolk County Sheriff Andrea J. Cabral. The breadth and depth of my experience for Sheriff Cabral was amazing. I remember when I went to work for her, she said it was going to be some of the most challenging and rewarding time of my professional life, and she was right. I handled dozens of labor arbitration cases, became an expert in the field of labor relations. I worked closely with union leadership and developed a reputation, I think, as a fair and level-headed negotiator. I represented the department before several administrative agencies, from the Mass Commission Against Discrimination, tried cases in federal and state court, appeared before the Massachusetts Appeals Court. I gave trainings to staff in Weingarten rights and Corey. It was a really fulfilling time in my career. From then, as Judge Archia mentioned, I went to the Massachusetts Parole Board, first as Deputy General Counsel and then as General Counsel. I represented that agency again in many administrative settings, the Commission Against Discrimination, Civil Service Commission, the Department of Labor Relations. I served as a fact finder on an entity called the Criminal History Systems Board and worked closely with our Human Resources Division in handling all the workers' comp cases at Parole. At Parole, we regularly had trainings they were given to the Parole Board members, but I, as General Counsel, went to a lot of these trainings. They focused primarily in the areas of mental health issues and substance use disorders. So I've had a lot of experience in trainings in those two fields. After 4 years at Parole, I accepted a position as Deputy Director and General Counsel for one of DIA's sister agencies, the Department of Career Services. There was a certain synergy amongst the labor agencies. It's the smallest secretariat. And although I found my career in law enforcement and public safety very fulfilling and interesting, I really enjoyed joining a secretariat whose main mission was putting folks back to work and not necessarily putting them or keeping them in jail. I take particular pride in my time overseeing the state's offender reentry program. This is a program where we would try to locate Corey-friendly employers and put them in touch with folks that were being released. And I was able to leverage a lot of my connections that I made throughout the previous 10 years in law enforcement. We went to the Norfolk County Sheriff, we went to federal prison, Suffolk County, and we would, give trainings to the inmates, teach them about the career centers that we run at DCS. And for the past 5 years, it's been my privilege to serve on State Auditor Suzanne Bump's senior leadership team. I've had the pleasure of working with some of the most talented attorneys, both in and out of state government. Auditor Bump has been a wonderful friend and mentor to me. And when I was considering applying for this position, I sought her advice and counsel, as I think anyone would, given her previous role as Secretary of Labor. Auditor Bump, she told me what the qualities that she looked for and she sought in an administrative judge during her time in labor. Of course, it was legal acumen and experience, but also intelligence, kindness, fairness, respect, professionalism, and a diverse lived experience. These are the qualities she told me that is what were important to her at the time. And she encouraged me to apply, and I will be forever grateful for her encouragement and support. If confirmed, I pledge to bring these qualities, the qualities that Auditor Bump told me she looked for, to my courtroom. It's an honor to be nominated today. It truly is an honor. And it would be a privilege to serve, and I would humbly ask for your vote in support of my nomination. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Duff.
Good morning. It's great to see you. We've spoken, and I think I've met you, but
Yes, Councilor.
yeah. Anyway,
Good to see you.
one of the things that the auditor mentioned that she looks for, I absolutely concur with, and that is something that you bring that we don't always see, and that is a very diverse background. I mean, you're definitely well-schooled in this particular issue, but you have, over the course of your life, worked in a lot of different fields. And I think that is really, really important because it brings a broad view of things. And I think it also brings a type of compassion that we don't always see, or empathy maybe, to different people. And I know you've done a lot of homework, and I've gotten quite a few calls from people, including John Blodgett, in support of you. He and I went to high school together, so he's an old friend. But what do you see as one of the biggest challenges that this court is facing right now?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, I think we're rounding third, heading home, getting the pandemic in our rearview mirror. But in speaking to current and former judges at the DIA, you know, getting through the backlog that, you know, this pandemic has caused, you know, just getting things back to this quote unquote normal. You know, as many of the folks in this room know, conducting hearings, conducting trials via Zoom, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. And I know DIA in certain circumstances have been utilizing, you know,
Yeah.
WebEx, I think is the platform they use. But that's been a real challenge. So I think, you know, getting things back to normal, getting cases heard, getting cases processed, getting decisions to the litigants, that remains a huge priority.
I think that's absolutely true. And I suspect that in this particular court, we're going to see some very unusual issues coming up as well. Have you had a chance to talk to any of the other people on this bench about that, or what are they anticipating? I just think with unemployment and everything, the way that it's been, and people are really shifting. Everyone is shifting, as we read almost daily in different papers, how they're viewing their future and their lives and changing jobs and stuff. Have you had any opportunity to discuss this type of thing with who may be your future colleagues?
I have, yes.
And what are what do they think?
Well, it's an interesting time. And frankly, again, I don't think this is unique to DIA and workers' compensation. You know, working from home presents all sorts of new
Very
dynamic
different.
issues, especially in the workers' comp bar, in the workers' comp case law. And we're going to see over the next months and years, I think, radical changes in workers' compensation law. The whole phenomenon, I mean, it's funny. We joke at the auditor's office. I was a bit from the old school when it came to remote working. I think we were talking about perhaps one day a month, and that sounds so quaint
Yeah.
nowadays. This is 2 years ago. But with workers transitioning as office workers, of course, there's a whole entire swath of folks who get injured at work that, frankly, this doesn't affect. But you know, office workers, you know, working from home, and the dynamic of, you know, not being in the brick and mortar office, but, you know, tripping and falling at your house.
Right, exactly. I mean, these are really, this case law is going to be fascinating. And,
Yes.
and how do we form it? And, you know, you're going to have a big task ahead of you because you're really creating something in a type of, it's law, but a type of law in a sort of a branch of this that we literally have never seen. And it's, to me, a little bit ominous. But some of the jobs you've taken, I think are like, you couldn't pay me to be on the parole board in any fashion whatsoever. So you clearly don't mind hard work or a challenge. I mean, anyone that paints houses, God bless you. By the way, Judge, we'll talk to you about that. I could use a little house painting. Is there anything, and I know these are kind of broad swath questions, but it is, because it is so new. What are you doing to prepare yourself to come, if you do so come to us and as a judge, which I suspect you may? What are you doing to prepare for that?
So I've known, as I mentioned, I've talked to Auditor Bump about this over the months and probably years. I knew I was going to be applying for this position.
Mhm.
I knew a long time ago. It's something, as I discussed, you know, I was introduced to administrative law early in my career, and it's something that I have, you know, knew at some point in my career I'd be applying for it. So to answer your question, Chapter 152, it's a very nuanced and complex statute. I've read it cover to cover. I acquired volumes 29 and 29A of Mass Practice, read those cover to cover. And then all the other, I've tried to get my hands on everything I could, the workers' comp source book, MCLE documents.
Great.
I've talked to, as I said, I was lucky enough to have a former colleague and friend who just recently left being a DIA judge. So I've been able to spend a lot of time with her talking about the issues, talking about the IT platform that they're using, talking about the forms that they're using,
Yeah.
talking about the infrastructure and the org chart of DIA. So I've tried to do everything in my power to bring myself up to speed. Another thing, I'd like to give a shout out to the Workers' Comp Advisory Board and the good work that they do. They put out an annual report that is full of amazing information. It really gives the uninitiated or the partially initiated to the world of workers' comp a very insightful look in what's going on.
Thank you for saying that, because there are a lot of agencies, including the auditor's office, that put out some really wonderful reports filled with information that is quite enlightening to
Yes.
people, that from a completely objective point of view, because that's the whole idea, is we're not, even though you may become a judge, our job is to sit there out of judgment and come to the conclusion which is most fair. Do you like to write?
I do.
Good.
I do. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure your parents who are teachers like that. No, because I think that's really important. And
Yes.
I think this is it's an exciting time for this particular type of law, actually. And you referenced some of the very thing, what happens when an employee who's working from home gets injured at home. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens and how it's sorted out and all of that. But challenging, but very, very exciting, because we're really opening a door to a whole nother place that we've never had to go legally in the past. And so if you feel up to that challenge, I think it is very important. It's important that you like to work. It's important that you're dedicated to this and that you've done your homework, which I thank you for doing. You've come in, you definitely had a great, not just internship, but reading of the law with Judge Gallagher, so to speak, back in the day, which isn't something that people really get that much of anymore. But I suspect, knowing what I know about him, that it was really a wonderful education. And I didn't know him, but he sounds like he was a terrific fellow. So anyway, I think you're going to bring a very well-rounded perspective to the bench, to DIA. And I think you're going to be working very, very hard. And I encourage you, as I encourage all the applicants who sit here for any position, to, one, be open-minded and creative in your thinking, because we will need it more than ever. And also in your application, you mentioned something that we did speak very briefly about, but is very important to me, and that's the mentoring program that the bar does with students. And if we're going to build a pipeline, we need to start building it when they're really young. I think we're doing things a little, we haven't been, not to criticize, but we learn from how we've done things, and I think we can do better. And I think that program is something that really has wings and is going to start to fly. And I for one have pledged to the bar that I will do everything we can to help them get it off the ground and in the air as best we can. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councilor Devaney.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Pleasure to see you, Counselor.
Thank you. Your experience is amazing. I've never seen anyone come before me that. Oh, I guess I was off. I just wanted to say that in all of the resumes I have seen in 21 years, it's amazing the wealth of knowledge you have had working in all the different state agencies, and not just working in those agencies, but to have a high-ranking office in those, even as a special assistant for the Attorney General, to have that position. First of all, I want to say that we received a letter from a lawyer, and I won't read it all if the chair wants to read it, but I just wanted to just point out some things he said about you. He said, "A person who is respectful of the work and effort the lawyer who appears before them put in the matter. A person who intelligently considers the law and facts before rendering a decision. A person who is humble enough to appreciate the circumstances of the litigants who appear before the court, and therefore to treat them with courtesy and compassion. A person whose good relations with their staff is evident, and a person who was willing to put in the hard work on a daily basis. And he said that based on his experience, he is honored to write this recommendation. It's Philip Y. Brown. So I thought I would mention that. So, I'm thinking of all the different positions you've had. It's amazing that you have had experience for this position, whether it's for the auditor or whatever, workman's compensation, the parole board, all of that, which is really, I've learned a lot. And there's a couple of organizations that I never heard of. But let me start with, first of all, you work for the auditor, Department of Career Services, parole board, sheriff, district attorney, risk concepts, the Suffolk County District Attorney. Amazing. So tell me, tell me about this, because I don't know, the alternative risk concepts. What was your job and what did they do?
So this was a small startup firm. They represented workers' comp carriers in something called reverse offset recovery. In many states, including Massachusetts, there's an offset against Social Security disability for workers' compensation paid out to an injured worker. There's a minority of states where the workers' comp insurer gets the offset from Social Security disability. So we would work for workers' comp insurance carriers to identify claims and claimants who are being paid workers' comp insurance, and then represent those claimants if they weren't also getting Social Security disability. So we would go in and we would represent the injured worker who is on workers' compensation, getting workers' comp benefits. And we try to get them on Social Security disability insurance.
Okay. So now you also were in a certificate program, certification for the MCAD. Tell me about that, and how does that work into labor relations?
Yeah, that was when I worked for Sheriff Andrea Cabral, who was a wonderful sheriff, went on to become a fantastic public safety secretary. The MCAD, I don't know if they still do, but they certify in-house trainers to become diversity trainers, and it really comes from the top. And I include Auditor Bump in this category. It's been my pleasure to work for employers, mostly politicians, leadership, who value a diverse workforce. And it's something that I've always valued tremendously. I think there's a tremendous benefit to having a diverse workforce. So when they were seeking candidates to go to this MCAD training, I was the first to raise my hand. And it was a training, I think it was at Bentley College, and it was a wonderful training, and I've relied on that training, gosh, at every job I've been to. And it's really about setting the standard for the agency and setting the expectation for hiring managers and hiring panels. That you need to think outside the box. You need to affirmatively go out and seek diverse candidates, because a diverse workforce is a better workforce. So again, I have to credit Sheriff Andrea Cabral for pointing this out and encouraging me to go to that training. But it was a wonderful training.
So when you look back at all of the positions that you've had, is there, if you can put it all together or take one out of there, what do you think gives you the qualifications to be in this position as administrative law judge?
Yeah, certainly the introduction to the field in general, I definitely would attribute to my time both at Alternative Risk Concepts with my good friend, attorney Michael Crow, and of course with Judge Gallagher. As I said, he was a very proud administrative law judge, and encouraged me to really dive headfirst into this field. I would also credit my time at the Department of Career Services. This is, as I mentioned, DCS is the acronym, is a sister agency of the DIA. So I really learned about what DIA does, the agency. Learned about the various divisions and units there. And then, finally, my time at Career Services introduced me to working at a outwardly facing agency. Most of the agencies where I worked didn't deal with members of the public, but DCS, for those that don't know, they run the one-stop career centers. The whole point is to get folks employed. They're often dealing with folks with a similar constituency that the DIA is dealing with. So I would always tell the staff that worked for me and I worked with to always, I'm a very proud public servant, as I already mentioned. And I insisted that staff dealing with members of the public give what we used to call world-class customer service. Every interaction with someone who's out of work or an injured employee, that may be their only interaction with state government. And I get personally offended at the sometimes poor reputation we have. And as I said, I would use every interaction, and I'd insist that staff that I work with used every interaction to put forth that world-class customer service.
So, I mean, it's been asked, if you can, if you side with one or the other, and obviously you don't. I mean, if you were going to err on the side, it would be for the worker, and all of your work shows that, even working for the last 5 years. Now tell me, what kind of things did you do as a district, a special assistant attorney general in this position, in this line of law? What would you say?
So I was the most active in that role. So most general counsels in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are appointed special assistant attorney generals for the purpose of any litigation. I think the most unique time in my career so I've been a special assistant attorney general, I think, at all my stops. I was the most active special assistant attorney general during parole. I can tell you that without reservation. The Attorney General's office represents most state agencies. So in most state agencies, the general counsel acts as sort of a liaison between the business units within the agency and the Attorney General's office representing them. At parole, we had an agreement amongst the Attorney General leadership that I would handle all parole litigation save for matters that were filed in the federal court. So I handled all the litigation while I was at parole. So if we got sued, I would represent the agency or the individuals. Frankly, I've represented Judge Archia when he was parole board member a few times. So that was when I was the most active assistant attorney general, actually going in and representing the agencies and litigating cases on behalf of the agency.
Tell me, people who go into this line of work who want to be on the industrial accident board, do many of them take training in areas of workers' compensation law and Social Security, disability advocacy? Because I see that you've done that, and I haven't seen that on a resume before. Is that something unique, or do many do that?
I can only speak to the one DIA judge that I'm familiar with, and I can tell you that she unequivocally did and continue to do that. I can't speak to any of the other judges.
It seems important to me to have that. Do you think that you got a lot out of that?
I did, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. You've been a district attorney. I mean, it's unbelievable. But with whatever position you had, it was involved in representing workers. And also, I like that you've been involved in your community. You volunteered, representing the town for the MWRA, going to those meetings. I know I was involved in those. Those aren't pleasant. But anyway, and also in the zoning board. So, you've had a lot of background dealing with people. And obviously, people are not always happy when you make a decision on the zoning board. So that's a good preparation for you. So, and the other thing is, I mean, you've been involved in the food pantry and so many things that, tells me that you care and that you have compassion. And people get sick of me saying it, but I look for compassion and empathy. And speaking with you for the long time that we did meet, I saw that you do have compassion. So, and the other thing is, I couldn't believe that you ran 100 miles. Was it 100 miles you ran, or was it a bicycle? What did you do? You 9 times you've done
I so
this?
badly
9?
want to say I ran, but no, it was on a bike.
What was it?
It was a bike.
Thank God. Okay. So just 100 miles, I can't even imagine a mile, but you've done that for 9 years. What a wonderful program that is. That really is, the
Yes,
buddy
that's
program.
buddies, yes.
Thank you for doing that. That is, so all of this, I mean, makes you the person that I look for, that has compassion, because these people are coming before you to put food on the table. And you have to make decisions on, is this legitimate? Are they really in need? And, and from my experience being here from Omar, I mean, there's not more person that has more compassion than Omar. That's what I look for. But, I can't help but say that, and I'm not politically correct, but you are qualified to be in the Superior Court. There's no question. And I'm thinking to myself, this council voted for a 44-year-old fellow that was one of 13 assistant solicitors in a city hall and worked for the sheriff. And those were his 2 jobs from law school. And I'm looking at yours, I'm saying, something's wrong with this picture. But I'll tell you, we are very lucky that you applied and that you have been approved. And I know that Omar has been shorthanded, and we really need people. And then I'm going to say something that's not politically correct. I love the Industrial Accident Board, most especially because it's not political. Because those political people who are looking for a job, they're looking for clerk, magistrate, and judges. They're not looking for the hard work of the Industrial Accident Board. And I don't mean it as a put down, but I'm just saying that you're going to be serving with good people, believe me. And I know, Councillor Iannella, who's been with me for a long time, and we have voted for those people you're going to serve with. And you've got the best in Omar. So I can't, I could go through all of this. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, even, that you have been involved in all of these state and federal laws against discrimination and all of that. So thank you for applying. And I don't have a poker face, so I'm going to be voting for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
So Councilor Duff took a lot of good questions off the table regarding the changing nature of things. So I was glad to hear that conversation. I also worked in a factory line for a couple summers when I was in high school. It was a very educational experience for me. I wonder how that experience would translate to your, I guess, your approach to your role and your approach to understanding the injured parties that are coming before you.
Yeah, I think it would definitely help the hypothetical administrative judge, especially at the Department of Industrial Accidents, but certainly in any setting, frankly, to walk the mile in a worker's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't particularly care for going up to a 3rd story to paint the window. But, I also had to keep my job and finish the job. I can tell you, I didn't particularly like replacing pricing guns on an assembly line in Marlboro with Monarch marking back in the early 90s. But I needed a job because I needed to go back to school. I was in community college at the time, and I aspired to graduate from a 4-year school, and I knew that I had to do it in order to make some money so I can get back to school. So I think it helps to give us a healthy sense of perspective to a judge if they've done those tough jobs and not necessarily gone from, an elite high school to elite college to an elite law school right into the working
Mhm.
world. So.
Yeah, I think of my time there and I was 17, 18. I didn't really have any perspective. Most of my coworkers were very recent immigrants, limited English skills and so forth. And I look back and I wonder if really the working conditions there were safe by the standards that I now consider things through. So I think it's really important to have that perspective in your role. And that's one of the reasons that that I'm excited about your nomination. You served or you worked with the parole board for a number of years. I'm wondering, did the parole board approve any or hold any commutation hearings in that time? Do you know?
Not nearly enough, in my opinion.
Why do you say that?
Because I think the clemency, parole pardons, the clemency process is a very it has the potential to be a very effective tool in the executive branch's toolbox.
Mhm.
And I can't, it's been a very long time since I was at parole.
Sure.
We didn't do many,
But there were some.
there were some, yes.
You've also worked in a couple roles. One is on the Criminal History Advisory Board. Is that correct? And you mentioned in your opening statements some of the job placement work and transition for folks transitioning out. And you mentioned Corey-friendly employers. And I wonder if you could talk about your perspective on Corey-friendly employers. It implies there's obstacles and plenty of non-Corey-friendly employers. Could you just speak to that for folks who may not understand how that works?
Certainly. What our goal was at DCS when we were working in reentry, and really, as I mentioned in my opening statement, this really became sort of a seed that grew into a plan at DCS. But we would have a lot of job fairs, and it was a challenge to find employers who were open to extending a job offer to someone with a criminal record. And I get it. I get it. There's a certain leap of faith that an employer must take. But when we found those folks, and frankly, I found that a lot of these folks were perhaps someone, who might have been a bit of a rudderless ship as a young person, and then they've achieved a certain level of success in their life, and now they wanted to pay it forward and take a chance with someone who had a criminal record, who was getting out of jail or incarceration. So it was a very fulfilling and rewarding experience. One of the things we wanted to do is to let inmates know that there is this hidden gem called the Department of Career Services and the One-Stop Career Centers. These are really wonderful places, and they have dedicated folks that they want to help people get work, regardless of fill in the blank.
And let me ask you, because you piqued my curiosity. So these hidden gems, why do you think they're hidden? What could we do as a state to make them less hidden? It seems to me reentry is maybe the most critical part of the criminal system, because the taxpayers have invested so much money in incarcerating someone. What's the payoff? Are we re-entering them to be productive members of society?
Yeah.
So why do you think these are hidden? What could we do better?
Well, I know that EOPS and labor are continuing the good work that we were doing back then. I know the efforts are still there to go out and identify these employers. It's all about education. It's all about, and we see nationally certain trends with respect to this sort of overall ethos of giving second chances and taking that leap of faith to try and get folks to work. Because, I don't know if it was Bill Clinton or Ronald Reagan. They don't agree on much.
That's
but
quite yeah.
Exactly. One of them was attributed to the best social program as a job.
Yeah.
And I think that's, undebatable.
I really value that perspective, and you're not the first in recent weeks nominee we've had before us who's had experience and understands the importance of those reentry programs. And I know it doesn't apply directly to your work as administrative judge, but I think it's an important perspective, and I appreciate you sharing it. I'm really impressed with your experience, and what I see is adaptability. I mean, general counsel to multiple agencies every step of the way, reports of competency, of compassion, of diligence. and your preparation for this role and your mastery and study of the laws. And finally, the Best Buddies thing. I've seen Best Buddies grow since it had a tiny office in Nonantum. And I just love to see how it's grown, and I appreciate your participation with that organization. It does outstanding work
Thank you.
for folks with developmental disabilities.
Yes.
So with that, I have no further questions, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
Councilor Kennedy.
You know, that when you standing up at the beginning of it, answering all those questions, and look at your mother and father and being,
Oh,
and justifiably so.
Yeah.
I have known you probably as long as Judge Archia, obviously not as well, but certainly as long, since you started as a young prosecutor in Peabody. I think we had a number of cases together during that time,
we did. Yes.
and I'll bet you wish you gave me a break then, huh? But no, even going back then, you know, when you started there in 2003, I had already been doing it for a long time, you know. And you were certainly somebody that I remember having a great relationship during that and since then, various roles. You were always incredibly well prepared for every case you had, which made it more difficult for me. Yeah, just as you are prepared today. You left out the fact today that you spent a number of days sitting in on hearings at the DIA. I'm aware of that, and I know who you did that with. Just sitting in on conferences, and just in terms of preparation, you spent days and days watching. Not many people do that from here, and that speaks volumes about how well prepared you are and how well prepared you'll be as a DIA judge. I've made no secret to anyone on this council or the advisory board or the workers' comp, JNC, or anybody else that I'm a huge supporter and will continue to be. Yeah, I think that you're going to do a fantastic job. I can't wait to vote for you as soon as we have an assembly. And hopefully that'll be sooner rather than.
Thank you very much, Councilor.
Thank you.
Take that as a yes.
So maybe.
Sorry, Anella.
Thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon, actually.
Afternoon, Council.
We had a lengthy conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time and talking with me. You know, claims are down. Claims are down at the DIA, and why is that? Well, because of the pandemic, so many people, number one, weren't working, collecting unemployment. Number two, working at home, okay? Even though you can make a claim if you get injured at home, the board didn't see many of those cases. So the claims are down. And obviously during the pandemic, they did conciliations. They did that, well, by WebEx, or you didn't have to show up. Same thing with conferences. You didn't have to show up. You could do that by WebEx or Zoom, whatever it was. Hearings, they didn't do many hearings. They didn't do many hearings because, you know, everybody wants to be there in person. So there is a backlog when it comes to hearings, but I'm not sure there is a backlog when it comes to conciliations and conferences. My question is, I think it's going to be very challenging, not only to you, but to all the judges. You know, as I sit here, I'm thinking, I've worked for myself since I graduated from law school. I have not had an employer other than the people, the citizens of this state, in my job as governor counsel. But before that, I worked as a custodian. I worked in the florist department at Stop and Shop. And every summer, I think it was for 4 years, I worked construction. So I say to myself, okay, if I got hurt, and I never got hurt, luckily, on the job, there was always someone there, a witness. You'd go to your boss and say, oh, I just fell, I hurt my arm. And then there's witnesses. The challenging part for you and other judges, and my question is, what are you going to do in these situations? Let me start. You know, I'm a strong advocate for working people. Somebody says, yeah, working at home. I slipped and fell, going from the living room because I'm doing the work on the couch and going to my desk, and I slip and fall. I hurt my back. There are no witnesses. most cases, there are witnesses. This is a credibility issue. I mean, how do you not go with the employee? There's no witnesses to say, oh, that's baloney. You know, we got surveillance cameras, because you have that on a lot of these job sites. So what's your thought on someone who gets injured at home? How do you determine their credibility? And how do you not go with them? I know it sounds crazy, but how do you not go with them 100% of the time? What would be a reason that you didn't say the person got hurt in the course of his or her employment and at work?
Well, I mean, it comes down to assessing their credibility, right? I mean,
How do you assess it?
well, I believe we look for what are called Waddell signs in the DIA. You know, it's assessing credibility. I always, whenever I got an opportunity to cross
Let me
examine.
I don't mean to interrupt you. The only reason I'm saying, because I know you have, I'm trying to help you, that you have limited experience at the DIA.
Yes,
But the first situations, you know, after the conciliation is going to be the conference.
yes.
There's no credibility there. The employee does not testify. The employee doesn't say a word at the conference. So you can't judge credibility at the conference. And you're going to have someone to come before you and say, I've been out of work for 3.5 months. And if you don't rule in their favor, they may have another 4 or 5 months before a hearing. And once they have the hearing 4 or 5 months later, it's another 4 or 5 months, if not a lot longer, before you render a decision. So if somebody gets hurt at work, it may be well over, it will be well over a year before you can assess their credibility. Okay, because you got the conference, then you got the hearing. So again, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What I'm saying is at the conference level, which is probably 2-3 months after the person got hurt at work, how do you not believe it? How do you not believe when the employee attorney says, yeah, so-and-so got hurt, was on the couch, going there and slipped and fell and hurt her back?
Well, I mean, I think that's a difficult question.
No, and it's challenging.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
No.
everyone has got that issue.
Yeah, I was.
And I didn't think of it until right now, somebody brought it up, I got her at work, yeah.
Well, look, we all, as we discussed, there's going to be a time, and I've always done this, frankly, where I take things under advisement and I go talk to the senior judges and we go over facts and I get their input and I think about it and I study it and you know, take that specific case on its merits and make decisions.
Again, I won't put you on the spot, just one more way. But there are no other facts, just the way I told them. I can go, I'm leaving here, I work here, and, you know, I'll say this is not a state building, but I slipped and fell. I lift a box of my files, shoulder. There's no, other than the client, there's no one else. I mean, to me, it's going to be very hard. How about this? Do you agree or disagree? It's going to be very difficult to rule, at least on that issue. Forget the issue of disability. That's another issue. But it's going to be very hard for a judge to rule against the employee that he or she didn't get hurt at work. You concede that?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's going to be difficult. But obviously, like I said, you have the disability issue. Is the person disabled? That's another issue. Trying to think. Have you met with Omar? Omar Hernandez is the senior judge, and what a super guy. Nobody is nicer than Omar. And usually, and I know he probably doesn't know you that well, because most of the time, I don't know if he's ever not been up for nominee. If he hasn't, it's very rare. He usually shows up. And I don't know if you had a conversation with Judge Hernandez.
Well, certainly Judge Hernandez was present in the judicial nominating panel interview. I certainly know of Judge Hernandez from my time in DCS. So yes, I have interacted with Judge Hernandez.
No, I meant since your appointment. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, Judge, I have a hearing on so-and-so date. I just got appointed by Governor Baker. Do you have any suggestions? Do you think, I don't know if you had any since you've been appointed?
I've not, no.
Okay, no, that's fine. Starting real soon, I think it's mid-July, the DIA is going to start doing conferences in person. And the reason being is that I believe Judge Hernandez spoke to a lot of members of the bar, and they all want to get back.
Mhm.
I can understand why everybody wants to go back. I'll leave that aside. Everyone's got their own reasons why they want to go back. But so now you have a case, and again, you're not on the DAA, so if you can easily say, I'm not sure. I don't want to, I'm just, because these are things that are going to come up. Say Attorney so-and-so has a case in front of you, scheduled for July 23rd, because everything is going to be scheduled for in person. I don't care who it is, it's not going to be the employer. They want to show up for whatever their own personal reason. But let's assume it's the employee attorney. I don't feel comfortable coming in. You know, my mother or this, whatever. She's 80, this, or even me. I'm not saying me, but, and I'd rather do it by WebEx or Zoom. What's a Judge Dooling going to do in that situation?
Well, Judge,
Again, you may not know, so I don't even put you on the spot here.
yeah, well, I can tell you unequivocally, a new Judge Dooling is calling Judge Hernandez.
Yeah.
Guidance.
That's, my understanding is they have to let you do it by WebEx or whatever the word. The employee, I don't know, they don't have to be elderly, old, they haven't been vaccinated, they don't believe it, religious, whatever. So I would think, I would hope, my understanding is will be up to, let's assume it's up to the individual judge. I believe they have to go that way.
Mhm.
What would you do? Because some judges may say, no, you have to be in person.
Yeah, I
If you have that authority to do it by
certainly.
WebEx.
So arguendo, if I have that authority and it's my call, if not, I'm reverting back to my original answer, but hypothetically, I would, in the early days of us getting back into the office, I would certainly entertain that request.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I think you sort of have to. Imagine if something happened to someone, they show up and, next week, they got COVID-19. Oh, that'd be awful.
Yeah.
Last question. The most important quality. For you, we look down the road, 4 or 5, hey, this guy's great. What quality are people going to say about you?
well, I hope they say that I was fair.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. But I think that's, but some people, I like the quality of, and we've heard before, of compassion.
Mhm.
Because you can be fair, but not really compassionate. I'd rather have you be compassionate and whatever else you want to see on the other side. But compassion to me is the most important thing. And it looks like a lot of your jobs, I could be wrong, I know you work for I think it was your father-in-law, but a lot of your jobs are in the public sector.
Yes.
So remember, you get hurt, I'm sure, the city, state, they got good arrangements. But that employee, who works at a grocery store
Yep.
and works construction, they don't have these private plans, disability plans, like maybe the state does. They have to support their family, the kids. So I hope you remember that. Because I think compassion, to me, is the most important quality for any good judge. And I think you mentioned when we spoke, and you alluded it to today, that you've been speaking with one other judge, is that right? On the DIA?
Yes,
And I think that judge is okay if I say that person's name?
certainly.
I think you told me it was Judge Anna Siegel.
Correct.
And I've never appeared in front of Judge Siegel, so I don't want you to think I'm a personal friend of hers, which I'm not. She was one judge that I think both sides would think that she was, we use your term, fair, but I think she was very, very compassionate. And like I said to you yesterday, if you could be 90% as good as Judge Siegel, I think you're going to be an outstanding judge. I don't have any further questions. Like I said, we had a lengthy conversation. And when your name comes before us, you can 100% count on my vote.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my view on judges is, having observed judges for probably close to 50 years, that there's two kinds of judges. There are those that sit and try to find something they can support the government's allegation. And there are judges who try their best to find some sliver of reasonable doubt in the case. And to me, they're both completely different in the way they deal with people. The judges that try to look for any way they can to justify some evidence to convict somebody are usually the judges that send a lot of people to jail. They don't usually find people not guilty on jury waive trials. The judges that look the opposite, look for ways to find reasonable doubt in the facts, seem to be more compassionate and seem to be able to say the word not guilty. Believe it or not, there are judges that I know that I don't think have ever said not before guilty in the Commonwealth. I assume the DIA is, I don't work there, but I assume judges have discretion to a certain extent in that body also. So you could look with discretion, look for ways to support the insurer for not paying, or look for ways to support the citizen about getting some benefits, and usually much needed benefits. So I guess my question is, which is the two routes here? You know, and I hear from candidates who sit here all the time saying, well, Mr. JUbinville, I'm just going to follow the law. And in my view, that is incorrect. And it's a term they like to throw out up here and in different places that I don't believe that's the job of a judge. Judges interpret the law. You can have two judges in two different courtrooms with the same set of facts, same evidence, and they can come to different conclusions because their discretion allows them to do that. And they either look for a way to uphold the government or look for a way that they can find reasonable doubt. And I'm sure at the Industrial Accident Board, you'll be in that position where you can either, you know, it's a close call. You can either find for the injured worker or find for the insurer. And in view of the fact that the people of the Commonwealth, the citizens, are going to be paying everything involving us and you, I guess my answer is, which kind of a judge are you going to be? 3 years from now, 4 years from now, if I walk in the DIA and I speak to a DIA lawyer and I say, hey, how's Tim Dooling doing? Never, very rarely finds for the injured worker, always finds for the insurance company. Or are they going to say, he's wonderful to the injured worker? Wonderful. Understanding that the whole board was set up, I believe in 1921, to give money to injured workers. So when I hear judges don't want to do that, I kind of say, well, what are you doing there? You're not there to help people. So how's Judge, when I bump into somebody there 3 years from now, what are the lawyers going to say to me about Judge Dooling?
Well, I think they're going to say that he's the type of judge that advanced the original premise of Chapter 152. The workers' comp history in Massachusetts is very interesting. You know, there's a reason why Chapter 152 is a beneficent statute, and it's because historically employers could avoid liability for asserting the defenses at common law, foreseeability, assumption of the risk, contributory negligence. And the workers' comp statute of Massachusetts was in response to that. the business community was very against the original workers' comp statute in Massachusetts. They thought it would put them in an unfair competitive advantage. So when it was passed, I believe it was 109 years ago tomorrow, the first workers' comp law in Massachusetts took effect. It was passed with the idea of, tie goes to the employer. It's a beneficent statute by design. So once you can sort of understand that, then that I think is the sort of the threshold issue and the threshold approach that all judges should have, the DIA. So I don't know.
So I didn't hear an answer to my question.
Well, I'm the
Look, it's simple. It's simple. When I walk in there in 3 years, am I going to hear the local bar say, do everything you can to get out of Judge Dooling's courtroom because he's not finding for your guy. He's going to look for anything he can to uphold the insurance carrier. Or are they going to say, if you can get before Judge Dooling, you're in good shape. He is wonderful to people. He goes out of his way to make sure he can find facts that can get them some money in their pocket. What are they going to say? Because that's up to you how they say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope the latter, as far as he's a wonderful person and he's going to give your client the fair shake.
Yeah, no, forget the fair shake. I hear fair shake all over this Commonwealth. You know how many people we put in jail under the fair shake theory? They're stuffed with jail. They're bulging. I don't want to hear fairness.
Yeah.
There isn't, in my view, there's not a lot of fairness that goes on in courtrooms. It's not about fairness. It's sort of,
One thing,
yes, Counsel.
I want to just help the nominee. This is a question we do ask a lot of nominees, and you can answer it any way you want. But I don't know if anyone has not said, I hope they think I did a wonderful job for the employee. You can answer it any way you want, but I want to help you out. And you can answer it any way you want. But other nominees have sat there have answered it that way. But I don't care. I'm just trying to be a good guy. I'm not just to help you out.
It's a softball.
Upon further reflection, Councilor Judge, I hope they say I've done a wonderful job for the employee, and I truly mean that.
Well, hope depends on you.
Yes.
What you make of yourself as a judge, whether you're DIA or whether you're district court or superior court, if I sat down with the worst superior court judge I've ever seen, he would tell me in his lobby that he's fair because he believes he is when he's sending people off to jail all the time. And the same with the district court. But to me, fairness is, most people are fair. You're a very fair man from what I've known you, and I've known you for, I think, about 10 years. And I have never seen you other than a polite, decent human being. So I'm going to assuming you're fair. I want to know whether you're gonna go one step further than that and really look for a way to uphold the claim of an injured worker, especially where they probably need the money badly, they got a family, they got kids, and they didn't ask to be injured. So yeah, an insurance carrier can come up with some defense, but you have the discretion to say, I'm not buying it. I'm going to fine for the injured worker. So like Councilor Dianella said, with the pandemic, people are working from home. I assume when they're home working, they're covered. I'm not in that field, but I assume they would be covered under workman's comp. So if they get up to go to the bathroom in their house and they trip and fall down and break their leg or their hip, they're covered, I assume, right?
Yes.
So I guess when, I know there are people that probably go to the board that make up a story and they're really not injured. But there's medical records that come with it too, right?
Yes.
So even if, like under Councilor Ianella's scenario, somebody says I'm injured, you've got to take their word for it at the start or deny them. So I guess for me, with the pandemic, anybody that says they're injured at work, at least in the beginning, I'm going to say, okay, no problem. I'm going to accept that claim. And we'll go forward on here and see what comes of it. Because it's easy to deny people, but the board, I think, is not there for denial. It's there to give people funds to be able to survive with the injury they receive. So you're the hope. You control the hope. We all on this council are going to vote for you from what I see. But we want to hope, we're going to hope that you set the tone of what people say about you. Because, you know, us lawyers, whether what courts we're in, we're always talking about judges. We sit in courtrooms, judges are up there. They don't realize we're talking about them. Like the pitchers, you know, the ball players in the dugout are talking about the pitcher, how good he is, what he throws. We're talking about judges like that. And some judges have wonderful reputation. People are better off going before them, others don't. But it's because of the judge. They end up with a good reputation or they end up with a bad one, but they're in control of that. You're going to be in control of what you do on that bench. So anyway, I'll take your answer to be that you're going to look for any way you can to put money in some injured worker's hands, okay?
Yes,
And then the council will be very happy with you.
yes, absolutely.
But I don't have anything else. I've known you for a long time. You have been a quality person. I think you're going to make a wonderful, wonderful judge in the DIA.
Thank you, Counselor. And thank you for chairing today.
Okay, anybody, any other things? Okay, meeting's adjourned. We'll be voting on you next week.
Thank you.
Good luck. We're trying to help you.